Hey guys, it's Josh here and welcome back to another speed build. But before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys so much for all of the support that you've shown for my most recent custom content pack which I shared last week. I'm just blown away by the amount of positive feedback and I'm just so excited to work on even more custom content in the future. I just cannot wait to get started. Back to this speed build. As some of you may know, I am Australian and one thing I love to do in The Sims is to build Australian houses, and it's been quite a while since I last built an Australian house, so I thought I might as well do one today, and this is the end result. I decided to build a Queenslander house, which is a house that you'd most often find in the state of Queensland in Australia. That's very hot and humid. And because of that, the house is quite different from my previous Australian inspired houses that I've made in the past, which were probably more based around my local area, but this house is nowhere near where I live. This is on the opposite side of Australia up the top. And yeah, this house is based around a hot and humid environment. So there's lots, one thing that's common amongst most Queenslander houses is the fact that they're white. Even the roof's white, everything is white on the outside. And another thing about them is that the foundation is quite tall and the house is quite high up above the ground. That's because basically during the wet season, the chances of flooding, depending on where you are, is actually quite high in Queensland. So to minimize water damage, I guess that's why the houses have been raised up. And another reason was that so air could pass through, because generally the Queenslander houses have either just stilts or stilts with some surrounding wooden planks around the outside of the foundations. But in this case I used concrete because there were no foundations in the game that had wood or just stilts by themselves without the trimming that appears at the very top of the foundations, and I just did not like how that looked. So in the end I decided to use these concrete foundations. I did experiment at one point down the line with the stilts, but it just kind of looked a little bit strange. But I do use some stilts at the back of the house on the deck because I thought it didn't look as bad as it did when I used it for the entire house, so I did keep it for the back area. So yeah, anyway, this house is a 3-bedroom home, one being a kid's bedroom and the other two being fairly small double bed bedrooms, and there's also only one bathroom in the house. I was originally planning to have the toilet in a separate room, but in the end I actually changed that to be one room. There is, I believe, enough room for expansion, and you could even expand onto the deck, as you'll see later. It's quite easy to just build a wall on the outside of the deck and actually just have another room there. But yeah, there's only one bathroom, so there could be a little bit of a queue in the mornings when your Sims are getting ready, but this, apart from the number of bedrooms, is actually a fairly nice house in terms of what you have. So there's a pool outside, there's an outdoor barbecue area and a dining area, as well as even a fire pit area. The whole lot itself, since this is a I think this is a 30 by 20 lot, I've tried to fill up as much space as possible. As you can see, the deck has been built, and at this point in time I still haven't changed the foundations to the stilts just yet, but don't worry, they will get changed to stilts very soon actually, and after that I think we'll move straight into the interiors. Yep, here comes the stilts, and yeah, this is when I tried to add stilts to the entire house, but it just was not working for me, so I ended up just putting it back, and now we are working on the interior. I forgot to mention it earlier, but the main living space is actually just one big room, open plan living, and essentially for this house I kind of wanted it to be some sort of a hybrid between an old house and a newly renovated modern house. So it's kind of the style, I guess, is of an old house, but the interior has been somewhat renovated since being originally built. So there's a few old things here and there, while also there's a bunch of modern things, because as you may know, I love to build modern houses, but I just did not want to make this into another one of those ultra modern fancy houses. So I tried to keep it quite simple and just kind of used some basic modern things here and there, but not over the top, so that everything is crazy modern, even though the exterior is not really modern looking. It's a Queenslander from the outside just looks kind of like a traditional style house, since they've been around for quite a while, but the interior is being renovated. Moving on into the interiors, I skipped ahead a little bit since I was just kind of messing around with the exterior shape quite a bit, but we're inside now, and this is when I was kind of deciding whether or not I should go modern or traditional. And at the start I was going to try and use some traditional counters with some like old looking, or some of the simple stoves that aren't like ultra modern looking, but in the end I decided to change it into the ones from Parenthood, and I used a couple of the Parenthood appliances which are slightly more modern looking, especially the fridge, because it's got its own little digital screen on it, which is quite luxury if you ask me. And I do add some stools and bits of clutter down the line, but yeah, it's kind of a really small kitchen. Probably one sim would be able to fit in here at a time, and I had so much trouble with the living space. Like, it was such an awkward location and shape, and I was just kind of like trying to figure out what kind of chair or what kind of sofa to use. And I think in the end I went with the one from Cats and Dogs, because as I mentioned, this is a slightly modern house, but I also wanted to make sure that there was some traditional influence. So maybe this family house has been part of the same family for quite a while, so some things here and there are still, or probably the original maybe. So I do use the Cats and Dogs sofa, which is probably one of my favorite basic sofas in the game that isn't modern, because so many of like the sofas from various packs are just so ornamental and styled, and it's kind of a bit over the top. But that one from Cats and Dogs is very like down to earth, simple style, which is something that we need more of, to be honest. Like, we have some nice decorative fancy things that like the goths would use. We have a couple of modern things here and there, but we have like nothing really in between. It's either like super stylish or super like modern, and there's not really any like traditional styled simple furniture that isn't like something the goths would use in their houses, because everything else is so fancy. Here I am trying to figure out which table to use, because one thing I have a problem with is the amount of TV stand options we have. So this is an accent table. This is an accent table, not a TV stand, but I just have to use them because we don't have many options, especially that are modern, that is a TV stand, because we have like this really weird one that's like some sort of like case, and then we've got another one which is like this weird modern one called the shoehorn, which looks so weird. I've never even used it in my builds before. We've got a nice one from the kids room stuff, I believe, but I use that way too often, and sometimes it doesn't really suit what I'm going for. Like in this case, there was no matching wooden swatch for it, so I didn't use it. But one thing I did notice though was in the university trailer that released a couple of days ago, they had a very basic TV stand, and even a new TV, I'm pretty sure, and I'm just so excited for that TV stand because it's so basic looking. It's really like IKEA style. And one thing I used in the living room was, if you just saw right now, I placed the koala armchair down because, as I mentioned, there is a kids room in here, so it makes sense that there'd be a kids furniture here and there. And I just loved that koala armchair because obviously this is an Australian home and koalas are native to Australia, so I thought, why not? Because we don't really have many objects in the game that are actually like, that have an Australian influence to them, except for that koala. Like, I can't really think of anything else on top of my head, but if we do get a farming pack, EA, please take inspiration from some of the things around Australia, because we have a lot of farms and there are a lot of rural towns that you can look at for inspiration when designing the world, because I just want to be able to like go to Australia in The Sims, because I kind of turned Brindleton Bay into like a little Australia place in my like current households, because it's the closest thing that we have to Australian rural cities. We are working on the kids' bedroom, and overall the color scheme for every bedroom is actually like blue, because I tried to use other colors but it just didn't seem to work, because this house is in a location that's often very hot, and to me at least, having a lot of cool blue colors around and light colors like the whites of the wall around just make the house feel a lot cooler. And one thing I also did was, if you're wondering why on earth there's a high chair in here, that's because I wanted to make this room as if the child living here recently aged up from being a toddler, so that the people living in this house still haven't completely gotten rid of the various toddler items that they had. So that's just why there's a toddler table, or a high chair there rather, not a toddler table. There's a high chair there, but I don't think your Sims will actually be able to use it, since I did put some like clutter objects around it, and I actually put some stuff on top of the table as well, as you'll see when I end up cluttering the house later down the line. And I put like a photo frame there and like a toy there or something, so I don't think your Sims will actually be able to use it, which I think won't be a problem unless you intend to renovate that kid's bedroom back into a toddler's room and treat it as a toddler's bedroom. And as I mentioned, this pretty much every bedroom ends up getting some blue in it and whites. And I was going to try and make this red, but as I mentioned, I was trying to keep the house feel cool on the inside, and that red was not going to help, because red, color of fire, probably won't help you feel cooler. So that's why I changed this bedroom to be white, mainly with a bit of blue here and there. And yeah, I've tried my best to actually use a couple of rugs that I've never used in the game before. So the one in the kids' bedroom, I don't think I've ever used that before, so it was actually a lot of fun to be able to use some new things. And here I go with the Moschino bookshelf. I moved whatever was there to somewhere else because I just thought the Moschino bookshelf just looked really good in that little nook, I guess, because there was not really anything else I could have put there, since if I put a desk there, then I think that sofa would have gotten in the way. But I think the bookshelf looks pretty good there, and it's a little bit of a modern influence, as I mentioned. So there's the old traditional style sofa, but then right next to it there's this Moschino modern industrial kind of bookshelf, so it's like nicer. It's a bit of contrast, I guess, but I feel like they fit nicely together. And this isn't meant to be like an ultra modern house, as I mentioned, so it's kind of like a hybrid between old and new, since this is an old house with some new things inside of it. And this bedroom is probably the most light blue bedroom out of the two. The other bedroom is sort of like mainly white with a pop of blue, but this one ends up getting quite a number of blue things in it, I'm pretty sure. I think I put the blue cats and dogs prints down. Those paintings are just so versatile, and you can like line them up together and they look really nice together, or you can put them like vertically. You can just use just one of them and they look really nice. And all the swatches are pretty cool as well, how there's a white variant, a blue variant, and a green variant, as well as a couple of random like environmental prints which look really nice. And as if you might have just seen now, I actually changed all of the wall tiles to be the one from Parenthood, since, as I mentioned, I didn't want this to be super modern, and that completely white wall tiling, well, it's not tiling, the wall paint that I put on was kind of really modern, with how it was like completely white with like this tiny little skirting board down the bottom. But this one kind of fit what I was trying to do a lot better, in that this is an old house that's been renovated, and I felt like the wooden paneling at the bottom just helped make that point a little bit clearer, since it's not particularly modern, but it's like it's been painted white, so it looks a little bit like new and renovated slightly, instead of having like a timber one that has like a brown wood instead. And I was going to try and make the timber flooring white as well, but then that just kind of became too much, so I just kept it what it is right now. And for the exterior, I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but outside there's a pool, there's a outdoor deck which has a barbecue and a dining area. So you might have noticed already, but there's actually no dining area inside. There's counters inside that your Sims can eat at, but there's an undercover outdoor deck to the back of the house which actually has the which has the dining table. So your Sims will most likely eat outside most of the time. So let's just hope that when your Sims have dinner, the weather isn't terrible, because they'll have to either crowd around the couch or counters or eat outside. But anyway, I think we're almost done with the interiors, and I think I was in the middle of talking about the exteriors. So basically, apart from the pool and the dining area on the deck, there's actually a fire pit, as well as an abundance of plants, because as I mentioned, this is a house that is in a subtropical area, so there's plenty of water and lots of lush green vegetation. So I made that point very clear, and I put a lot of plants at the front, at the back. I put plants everywhere. And apart from that, there's also a small little carport to the front of the house, because one thing that I love to do ever since we got that debug show live edit objects cheat was to add cars to my builds, because they're a lot more good looking now since we can use the high definition models from the props that appear from the world instead of using that toy car, because I can't tell you how many times I've sized up that toy car to use in a build and had to put up with the fact that it looks so weird, because it's like this low quality, well, it's not low quality, but there's like this low poly, blurry textured car on the front of the lot. But now we can use this nice high resolution, high poly count car from the world instead. But anyway, since we're just working on the decorations now, and I just did talk over some of the things that happened with the exterior, I think I'll just leave you guys off here. There will be screenshots at the very end of this video, so if you're interested in those, definitely stay tuned. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye guys!